our elections are about trust, and literally people try to sort of do monkey business around these processes. And we try to create this process so that it is, of course, conforms to the law and there's regulation around it, but people still try to sort of work around it. How do you marry the two, Elisha, in this sense, knowing the true nature of who we are and the things we try to put in law?
To create a proper constitutional culture, I'm not looking at it broadly, and legal culture, where people, the constitution means something to people at a fairly spiritual level, and the law means something to people at a fairly spiritual level, where somebody, without being observed, would seriously reflect and think that doing the right thing is the right thing, requires that cultural shift and that trust element. That's difficult to legislate. That requires a behavioral change. It requires introspection. It requires conversations people have very informally to know that we are better off as a society by doing just the right thing. It is my hope that my country, Kenya, will approximate that. We may not fully reach it, but at least we'll push towards that. In my own view, we are doing significantly badly on that index. We need to push so that our trust is very low. And you did not look far. Just the behavior of this commission in terms of the back and forth you have seen is itself, it shows that level of bad manners, the distrust at that level. But let me tell you something smart, and obviously we know this. The Electoral Code of Conduct obligates every candidate and every political party to constantly tell the electorate to have confidence in the election management body, expressly. You have an obligation in law to constantly remind voters
Let's stay within the lines.
To have faith in the IEBC. It says expressly. I don't know whether the IEBC itself has a corresponding obligation to remind people by conduct that you must have faith in us. From what we're just in.
Maybe they should remind themselves.
Yes, the court kept saying, the two factions.
Yes.
Today you heard the word factions used by the Chief Justice herself.
For the first time.
Yes, for the first time.
Yes.
To imagine factionalism in a body that you're supposed to have trust in is to stretch the limits of trust fairly widely. So that is something we need to, the law will not solve that. Let's take it to the bank. The law will not make us have more faith. We need just have more introspective men and women who understand the gravity of their obligation, who understand the hopes and aspirations that they carry with them, so that over time we do this. I was just asking myself today, the IEBC is just a constitutional body like that Supreme Court. They're just both constitutional bodies. Imagine if a half of that Supreme Court on Monday went to Serena and said, those things those people are doing there, we don't take ownership of them. Where would that leave us? And it is not different, by the way, from what the IEBC did. It's not different. Both of these are just constitutional bodies discharging constitutional mandates.
Right.
So what will we do? If those 7 people you saw there today, the men and women, a few of them just, coincidentally, there are 7 by the way. Yeah. IEBC is 7, the Supreme Court is 7. If 4 of them also walked, and we found them at Pan-Africa, and they also gave a press release, and that leaves us where we are. So some of these things, the law will never solve them. The only solution is they should not happen. They just should not happen. When they happen, they're just disenfranchising. And let's not think about next year we'll tighten the law to make it impossible for commission to do this. Yes. No, the law will not solve these problems. We just need people to think about their goodness as men and women that drives them to do what is just and right.
Yes.
Actually, as a matter of fact, we have very good laws, electoral laws.
Correct.
They're some of the best in the world. But there are 2 things that I think the law might be able to do, whether in terms of the existing law or in terms of the law that we could have if we reformed the Constitution, for example. So 2 things. One has to do with the appointment processes. The interesting thing is that the IEBC declares that it is independent.
Yes.
And I always found it curious when we were making the Constitution. We declared it is independent by name. But in practice, in action, it is anything but independent. So what guarantees independence has to start with the appointment processes. And this is where Kenyans have to be vigilant, to be able to say that, look, what we always get invariably, if you're talking about all of these constitutional commissions, the judiciary, name it, are very opaque appointment processes. They give us a veneer, an appearance of transparency, but they're never transparent. And so it's very easy to manipulate an institution because the person that helped you get the job is not, or the thing that helped you get your job is not your competence, but it is your allegiance to somebody, a puppeteer somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, so that is one. If we did that, then we can truly have independent institutions, because you'd be able to tell somebody that, look, I am here because of my competence, not because of your favors. Number one. Number two, and this goes back to BBI. BBI had many bad things, and I think the authors were carried away in many respects. However, there's one thing that it wanted to do that needs to be done in this country. And that is to make the presidency less salient, less important. And the only way we do that is by having power sharing.
Distribute power across.
In the executive.
Yes.
I mean, look at the other positions, the other elections. You even have people conceding, they have meetings after the election, they congratulate the winner, and they pledge to work together, they shake hands, and that is the end of it.
But the president has it a lot.
Exactly.
I mean, literally, the president decides many things that happens in this country.
Exactly.
Almost everything.